great group of folks here in the room at the J. Rieger Distillery in Alexander's Boardroom in Kansas City. And here's me. And so, yeah, we're excited today to have Anthony with us here, the founder of DEselect, who's going to be talking to us about that tool and how it works with Salesforce Marketing Cloud goodness. So I'm going to flip over here, hopefully, to the Zoom presentation, which means some of you might get some like kind of picture-in-picture goodness for those of you already on the Zoom. But I'm going to hopefully check Anthony's microphone here. You got a fancy mic. Hopefully it's working for us, and we'll all hear you. There we go. All right, Anthony, can you hear us? Let's get you unmuted there. Here you go. Take it away, Anthony.
And I'll give you a glimpse of the capabilities there. Then we'll jump to Engage, a somewhat newer module that was announced, and that is still, that we're still very releasing all kinds of new stuff for on a very regular basis. And then a sneak peek for our generative AI capabilities. It's kind of hard these days to escape all the noise about AI, and I'm sorry, you're gonna have more of it today, but I guarantee it's gonna be cool. You're gonna be really interested in what we're gonna show, and then Q&A. But again, Q&A can be throughout. So let's do this. So who are we? DEselect, we're a Salesforce App Exchange partner. So we are a software company. We're not a consulting firm. We're not a Salesforce customer. We're not an agency. No, we make SaaS and we love it. Our customers are typically in mid-market and enterprise. We have headquarters in Antwerp, Belgium, in case you're wondering where the funny accent comes from. So that's that. But we also have an office in Austin, which is incidentally where I'm based today. So if you hear this weird mix of Texas slang, like gunning it, mixed with some weird foreign accent, that's why I'm in full transition. We partner with Salesforce, obviously, but we also team up with all kinds of small and large and less large consulting firms, agencies, you name it. If your name is not here and you are in a consulting firm or an agency and you wonder, hey, why is my name not here? Feel free to reach out. We love partnering with SIs. I used to be on the consulting side myself, so I just understand how valuable that is within this ecosystem. So I do this very actively. Some key clients are listed. Pledge 1%. We believe in giving back. And then the main products are listed at the bottom, but we'll cover those today. Also, we're a mission-driven company. We like to believe we're doing a little bit more than just make plugins for Salesforce. And our mission is to elevate engagement through human intelligence at scale. And elevating engagement is something we aspire to do by making sure that marketers can do better communication, better one-on-one, better personalization, better targeted. Because come on, let's face it, who loves being spammed these days with content you don't like? So let's make the world a little bit of a better place. And human intelligence at scale, human, because even in a world with ChatGPT, someone still needs to write the prompt. And so we strongly believe in augmenting our human capabilities as if it were, and essentially offering us beautiful mission control for people in marketing operations. As I mentioned, we have a few nice logos. There's more, can't put them all on the slide. But needless to say, we serve customers in basically all the major marketing cloud segments. So that would be your automotive, financial services, telecommunications, software, retail. We have some huge healthcare service provider firms. We have pharmaceuticals, we have life sciences, pretty much everything. And education. I failed to mention education because they just have really complex data models and do a lot of outbound campaigns. I think that's why. Our customers tend to say really nice things about us. I'm super proud of that. I'll let you just, glimpse the slide for a second. One thing that's not on the slide, by the way, is that we have a pretty decent NPS. We should probably put it on the slide, but our NPS actually cruised past 60 and is sort of on its way to hit 70. And I think we have quite a mixed audience in the room, but probably a few marketers, and you know what that NPS means. Hey, maybe a very quick poll, because I like to deliver a personalized approach. What's the audience like today, Aaron? Do we have a mix of marketing people, martech people, admins, or is it just one category?
So I'm going to see if my microphone works here. Can you hear me? I'm going to take that as a no.
Crickets. Okay, we have one developer. Thanks for jumping in the chat.
Can you hear me on the mic?
And I hear something very quiet in the background, but I can't hear Aaron's side.
Probably.
Maybe while they figure out, we'll move on. By the way, Aaron, one more thing. I just realized this thing is not recording, but I think it might be useful for maybe your group members, and I'm sure we at DEselect will be happy to share the recording as well, if that's okay with you, if you're able to record. I don't think I have the controls for that.
We should be recording. Can you hear me now better on that?
Yes, we can hear you once again.
Okay, great. Yeah. So yeah, we are recording, so we'll have that available for folks. But I was going to say, here in the room we've got a lot of folks that work at different like Salesforce partners and agencies, and then we have a few folks that work directly for like the end users, the actual client end. So hopefully that helps.
Okay, very cool. Very cool. Thank you for sharing that. That helps adjust my presentation a little bit. Um, Moving on to the next slide, this is I really like this one because it gives such a good overview of just how Marketing Cloud itself sits in a wider landscape and how we augment Marketing Cloud. But essentially, if you have your Marketing Cloud on the right hand side, so that that's full box, then usually the data in your Marketing Cloud comes from somewhere. So that might be websites, events, other data sources. The vast majority of customers, they centralize their data not in Marketing Cloud but somewhere else, right? So that will be a CRM system, maybe a CDP like Salesforce Data Cloud, maybe some other third party, a Snowflake, and Azure, you name it. We see all of those things, and customers usually unify their data and have their master data management set up at that level, and then they feed what I like to call marketing consumable data. So it's a subset of your full data into the Marketing Cloud because it's bad practice to just dump everything there. Um, and that's then in Marketing Cloud you have your different studios and so on, and that's where we sit. So we got a search, we got segment, we got engage with various capabilities on which we'll touch a little bit today. One thing I will just point out right away, because we often get questions about it anyway, so we'll try to anticipate, especially with this audience. Data Cloud and segment, what's up with that? So we see more and more customers that have Data Cloud and reach out to us anyway, even though Data Cloud does do segmentation. So what's up with that? Well, essentially, most of those customers, they typically unify their data in Data Cloud, which means a stitching. They can use anonymous data. But to do the actual day-to-day segmentation of first-party data that is being used in email campaigns, they still prefer to do it in Marketing Cloud because that's where the marketers typically work. Whereas in Data Cloud, it's a little bit more of a gray zone. It's more technical marketers, it's more BI people. At least that's one trend we have seen. I'll just pause here for a second. So far, the overview of DEselect, what we do. Are there any questions so far? Okay, I'll assume no. So we'll jump on. Good to go? Okay. Great. Though I always like to bring instant value in these kind of demonstrations. So here's your instant value for today, your two call to actions. Segment free, this is a newer one. So we don't, this is live on App Exchange. You can get it today if you like. Basically, it will be a slimmed down version of the segmentation capabilities I will be demonstrating today. So if you're struggling with SQL, if you just need a little bit better segmentation, and you want to give this a try, this might suit you. It's free forever. There's just a limitation on the usage on a monthly basis. For some customers, like smaller organizations or nonprofits, that might be enough, honestly. And then have your fun with it. For others, it's a great way to just try it out. So that's segment free. And on the right hand side, we have search. And if you're not using search yet, shame on you. I think we have 5,000 users by now. It's a fully free app as well. It's available on Chrome and the App Exchange, and it allows you to, guess what, search. Quick note on that though, for the Chrome version, this is hot news. This is like literally news from today. Both our Chrome extension as well as a few other Marketing Cloud oriented search apps that are available on Chrome, on the Chrome App Store, they rely on a Salesforce API that is being deprecated. So in other words, the Chrome apps will stop working. However, we already have the one for App Exchange. If you install the one for App Exchange, you can also keep using the Chrome version, because the Chrome app that we have has a sweet embedded search app in your navigation bar. I'll show that in a second. So this is a very new news. I announced it literally today on LinkedIn and some other channels. Right, so that was search, there was some instant value. So let's talk a bit more about segment itself. Essentially, it's no code audience segmentation for Salesforce Marketing Cloud. The idea is that you can execute your campaigns in half the time, because other than just functionality, we do like to make a real business impact for our customers. Impact such as, well, the things you see on this slide, frankly. So I'll let you glimpse a little bit, see what resonates with you. And so a lot of people, they reach out because they don't have SQL knowledge. But there are other things, I think, one thing that is pretty cool to build, especially when you're a consultant, is, for instance, things like scoring models. And there are people who use that. I'll share a resource later on that you can use to build scoring models. Also, marketing cloud implementations. I mean, of course, you have a lot of workshops, there's a lot of content, there's journeys to be built in a typical marketing cloud implementation. However, there's also a large part of your project that is really about making sure you have things like master data extensions, right? Making sure your data model works, making sure it's consumable, understandable by non-technical end users. And that's something where we see implementation partners being very successful by using DEselect essentially to accelerate the implementation and also driving user adoption. Okay, I'm going to skip over a few slides, but I'll make sure the whole presentation is shared. So I'll skip over this as well. I do like to pause on this one. So I already, positioned DEselect segment a bit, and it's helpful to think of it as Segment Studio for Marketing Cloud, because as you'll see, it is fully integrated in the Marketing Cloud. It's intuitive drag and drop. But also, and this has been something we've prided ourselves on from the get-go, it's turnkey. It's literally customers engage in an agreement with us, or maybe these days you can get the free version and it's immediately ready to be used. Having said that, there are a few things that admins can do to make it even easier for end users, and I'll show that as well. And that can also be a role for consulting or agency partners. I think this is interesting. This is educational. So I'll pause a little bit on this one. You see, increasing campaign velocity, which means how fast can you get campaigns out of the door, is so critical these days in markets where you have to be really reactive, really fast. And usually the fastest to go to market can really make a big difference competitively. One of my customers is a large software company, and recently I went on site with them to visit and have a chat with our local exec sponsor. And one of the things that he told me is that this year they're running 650 experiments, and so these are all A/B tests that they're running, and every A/B test is geared towards learning more about their about their buyers, learning more about how to improve their campaigns. So 650 experiments in a year. And so it's interesting. I always thought of campaign velocity just as a way of get campaigns faster out the door, make your team more efficient. And obviously, it's all really important. But this customer of mine also educated me on the fact that having higher campaign velocity also allows you to do those tests faster. So it allows you to learn faster. And that can also be a true competitive advantage in today's market. So what does a usual flow look like? That's at the bottom here. Say you're using just SQL, and with this audience, I'm assuming most people are familiar, but just for the record, yes, there are some out-of-the-box features in Marketing Cloud to filter. Those have strong limitations. I'm not going to go into detail today. Anything a little bit more thorough, you want to write SQL queries, but many people don't want to write SQL queries, right? So, but what does that flow usually look like? Well, in this setup, your non-technical marketing team will brief or prepare a brief for whoever's doing the technical support, right? Agency, internal admin, IT, maybe a consultant who's still hanging around, that sort of thing. They prepare the brief, but then the technical support, whoever it is, they're in a different work stream. They work in sprints, their sprints are already committed, they have a full backlog. These people are usually like scarce talent that are always overworked. And so you have waiting times. And the waiting times, that's what kills your campaign velocity. If you can take anything away from this slide, is the waiting times that really kill it. But then, of course, the query actually has to be written, and that takes time as well. And for those who've done it, you all know how lovely debugging is in Marketing Cloud. It's very hard sometimes to get to the bottom of bugs, so that also can take some unexpected time. And, meanwhile, your marketer, they keep working on other campaigns, and suddenly they realize, oh, we need to add a filter, but then there's an emergency meeting because the campaign deadline is coming through. Technical support needs to adjust a query right before the deadline. Oh, whoopsie, the manager still wants another field for more personalization because one thing was not correct. We're missing the deadline. There's more stress. Everyone's yelling. Everyone's stressed. No one gets home at time on a Friday. This was my life. Like this slide is not made up. I saw this happen before my own eyes as a consultant embedded in a marketing team. I was usually the tech support there as well. So that's how I learned this thing, and this might resonate with you too. So what's the alternative? Well, we're offering one alternative where essentially you want to initially have some kind of selection template, and we'll see in a second what we mean with a selection. But it's essentially like the rules that create a segment, right? That's a selection. And there's different models, but the easiest way is that the tech support should do this one-off. Like they should create some kind of template, they should some kind of enablement, because I strongly believe that it should be marketers doing most of the segmentation themselves. And the reason for that is they'll be better marketers. If you have no idea what your data is, because you're always in the luxury position of just being able to ask some technical guy or gal to make a query, you're never forced to actually learn what's in your database. But if you do, you'll see all kinds of opportunities for personalization, for better targeting. So I'm a little bit opinionated on that, but that's one way of doing it. Having said that, as you'll see, many of our features also cater to the technical users, because you can really go quite berserk. All right. So, okay, what's the business impact? Bunch of things, but many customers, they report a huge amount of time saving on the time they used to spend on data. So that's awesome. And then we have a bunch of customer stories. Here's one. It's a telecom from the German-speaking region in Europe. So they use Salesforce out of the box for a long time. They also tried Automation Studio, SQL, and Query Studio. But that just was a very time-consuming process. They had technical teams doing that for the marketers as a sort of internal service. And so they switched that model around pretty much to what I was describing earlier, where, yes, the technical people would also still segment for the most complex things, but they would also create segments in such a way that the marketers could do it themselves. So now they have 4 times as many marketers who can actually do campaigns fully solo, because even though they don't have SQL skills, they can just self-manage. So that's pretty awesome. And just this, there's this quote on the story. It's online on our website, where they say something like, here we go. DEselect turned their whole team into data experts. And that, I think, is like one of the coolest things we do. Like, we actually make marketers better marketers. It's not just that we make the technical threshold lower. It's also by using our stuff that the people actually get better. Like, they educate themselves, they become more skilled, which is also good for their career. Alrighty, let's go back into share. So, and there's a bunch of these success stories. I'm not going to cover all of them. I will just share slides afterwards, and there's a bunch of slides a bunch of stories on our website, as you can see. But let's just jump into the demo. So for today's demo, I was kind of contemplating what I'm going to do, but I'm going to keep it pretty old school, and I'm going to stick to a data model that I'm sure many of the consultants in the room will know, because it's hard to segment without data. So I got, we're in our beloved Marketing Cloud, everyone's bread and butter in this call, and I have a bunch of data extensions here. Now, I'm going to make a few assumptions, like people probably know what data extensions are, but what I will show is that, for instance, for accounts here, is that readable, by the way? Is that zoomed in enough? Can you zoom in a little bit more if you need to? Just shout if. Cool. So here, demo accounts. So just a bit of sample data we're going to be playing around with. So I'm going to do a B2B scenario. We're going to pretend that all of us together, we're a team of B2B marketers, and we want to help accelerate some of the deals that our salespeople are working on. So what we want to do is we want to identify accounts with contacts where there is some kind of open opportunity. So this is what the account information looks like. Got a bunch of companies, location, etc. But what about those opportunities? Well, those are here. And this is what opportunities look like. So, there's an amount of each deal that we could win. You can see some of the deals are open, some of them are already closed, lost, etc. And yeah, that's the idea. We're going to do a campaign for that. Now, let's pause here for a second. If you want to do this out of the box Marketing Cloud, you could create filters, but we're dealing with data across multiple data extensions, right? So filters will not cut it. So we could also do it with SQL, but that's the thing we're trying to avoid, obviously. So what's the alternative? Well, the alternative will be DEselect segment, obviously. So just navigating there. And as you can see, I'm now going to App Exchange, where if you have DEselect installed, we will show up. Same for search, by the way. I kind of forgot to gloss over it, but the search bar at the top that you see here, so that's our Chrome extension, for which now you also need the App Exchange search version. But if you don't have that, you're really missing out because it's such a time saver. So anyway, I'm going to deselect segment, and let's zoom out a little bit. So this is the deselect segment interface, which I understand will be new for the majority of people here. What you see here is a list of something we like to call selections. So Anthony, what is a selection? Well, a selection is a group of rules, a set of rules with filters, with data extensions, going to define your segment. It's not the segment itself. That will be a new data extension, but it's what defines a segment. As you can see, we can, on the left-hand side here, organize a little bit by campaign, by team, by, I don't know, region. Here you can see all the selections I've made, how many records they were in, when they ran, who made them, and so on. There's a bunch more stuff here, but let's just get started and make that new selection. So we'll give it a name. We'll call it contacts with open opportunities. Again, just the user group. Bam. Side note, you can already see use template here. So not only have we made it super easy to segment with drag and drop rather than code, even within our own platform, we still foresee all kinds of time savers, including templates. So I'll try to briefly touch on those, but I will give you one big disclaimer. I will not be able to demo all of the things in today's demo, especially because I'm also going to cover still another product. But please just reach out if you want to have a more extensive demo, you have a use case for a customer, or maybe for the consulting and agency people in the room. If you want to have a more extensive deep dive for your own team, just reach out. I will share my contacts at the end of the presentation. Anyway, our selection is loading. Now, the cool thing is the moment you have DEselect installed in your environment, it, like I said, is fully integrated. And so in this selection panel where I'm now, you can see here available data sources, and essentially all your data extensions in your BU are immediately available. If anyone creates a new one, it's immediately available. There are permissions to limit that as well, but it goes to say that there's no additional integration work at any time. It just refreshes automatically, which I think is pretty cool. By the way, it's not only for data extensions. I will anticipate the common questions. It's also for synchronized data extensions, Salesforce data extensions, and yes, even data views for those who know what that is, like this send thing. But that's just in passing. So a selection, what are we going to do? We're going to cover 3 steps. First off, selection criteria. We're going to choose what DEs to work from, what filters to apply. Number 2, target definition. If you ever wrote a SQL query, you know you have to define a target DE. So that's where we're going to save the output. And then number 3, we can preview that as an optional step to see are we heading in the right direction with this segment. So reminder, we were going to do a campaign as marketers to accelerate open opportunities. So with my data model, that means that first we're going to need accounts. So I'm just searching for accounts here. It's one of my data extensions. I showed it earlier. So let's drag and drop that puppy right over here. And at the moment I drop that, we get this little pop-up here saying optional, provide an alias for the data extension. So this is not going to rename the data extension, but just make it a little bit easier to understand later. So why not? Let's just call it accounts, save, boom. Now something happened when I saved this, if you pay close attention. Available filters. All the fields from the account D are now available to, you guessed it, filter. But before we get there, let's make sure we have all the data extensions combined that we need. And let's take contacts, for instance. Let's see, you got a few here. This one. And so now to link this to the accounts, assuming there is some kind of logical relation like an ID, all I got to do is drop it on top of accounts. Once again, I can provide an alias, but this time we're going to see what I still like to call to this day the magic screen. The magic screen is exactly the thing why I need SQL normally, but we take that away because here we can define what is the relationship between accounts and contacts. And we can say, oh, well, accounts has its own ID. And on contacts, we have for each contact an account ID because each contact is linked to an account. Now, what's really cool is that we also have it's even possible for admins to pre-configure this. So notice that this mapping was done automatically. I didn't do that. In fact, this green pop-up here is saying predefined relation. So that's a feature that's in our admin panel. That's exactly the kind of thing that a consultant can help you set up, or your admin. And that makes it even easier so that non-technical users don't accidentally make mistakes here. On top of that, we can do all kinds of joins. So right now I'm looking at an inner join, but I could do things like a left join. I could do exclusions. I could do even crazy things like this cross join. That's useful for massive A/B testing generation, by the way, in case you're wondering. But let's just stick to a good old join. Boom, save. Okay, one more. We need to drop opportunities, which in my case is linked to accounts. Boom, boom, boom. Same thing, predefined relation. There we go. Join between 3 DEs with a few clicks. And, I was even talking a lot there, so you can see that can go even faster. But that's not even it. So even if you tell me, wait, Anthony, okay, this is awesome. I get it. I can drag and drop. I can save, hours of time with this. Great. However, my marketers, I love them. They're creative. They make wonderful content. They have no clue what you just did. They don't get joins. So we get that sometimes. My answer to that is two things. One, eventually they learn this very fast. But two, we even have features now like data sets where, let me just remove all of this stuff. Say if you have a blank slate and your team doesn't know how to map this, well, they can just they can take a pre-configured data set. And so that's, again, up to you, consultants and admins in this room, like this one, a common one, accounts, contacts, opportunities, and I drag and drop, and boom, all that stuff is there, even in one drag and drop, because we just love time saving at DEselect. All right. Quick check. Are we all good? Questions, remarks?
Lots of nods and thumbs ups in this room. Oh,
awesome. Glad to hear it.
I have a question. My name's Cole Erickson. When you showed the magic screen, you showed the account ID on the contacts, and my database is perfect. All of my contacts are matching with all of my accounts. Exactly.
Sorry, the line is breaking up a little bit.
Oh, sorry. That was a joke. Can you hear me if I hold it close like this?
Yeah. Now it seems to be better.
I'll try to ask this slowly. So does DEselect do any sort of fuzzy matching? Like, if I could imply that maybe these contacts aren't associated with the account like they should be, and I just want to pull a segment, if maybe they should be on the account for this example, can DEselect do that, or should the relationship already exist?
No, either way, admins can predefine relationships to make it even easier for non-technical users. And when I say make it easier, I mean prevent them from making mistakes. But you can do any join. There's no limitation on that. So if that answers your question.
Kind of. And just the objects themselves within my data set itself, does DEselect assume that I have the contacts on the accounts, or can I look for contacts that might match with that account but aren't necessarily on it already?
I'm super sorry, but half of your question went lost. It started well, but then it went like quiet and it broke up a little bit. Maybe as a suggestion, if I can invite you to put it in the chat, and I'll try to revisit the question later. That's okay. Yeah. Perfect. Yeah. Yes. So you could do fuzzy matching. It will probably take a little bit too much in this demo to show today, but we have some features where you can do fuzzy matching, which sits in at the level of the app called custom values, and you can even do regex like things there. And I think that will cover your question if you want to do kind of fuzzy matching. I mean, you could also do matching on things like email, on name, but I think you're referring to fuzzy matching where, you know, a name might be spelled in three, or an account name might be spelled in three different ways, right? So you'll probably want to do some kind of regex. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So we can do that. I'm not going to be able to show that today, but it's a capability. All right. Awesome. Cool. Great question, by the way. So we got our DEs. Let's add a few filters, and I'm just going to use the search function here. Let's just go for close date. So as you can see now, I added the close date as a filter that's coming from opportunities, and I'll just say before. And I can take a fixed date, but I can also do something cool, which is a relative date, like everything before 30 days ago that has a close date then. And what else do we want to say? Let's say stage, opportunity stage. And let's add that. And there we go. Opportunity stage equals closed lost. No, I'm going to take open. Wait, hold on, Anthony. What did you just do? There's a pick list. Yes, well, yes, there is a pick list. So I don't know why Marketing Cloud never introduced pick lists. I know many people ask the same question, but just like we added search, we also added pick list. So it's something that admins can configure. So that's filters in a nutshell. Long story short, there's no limitations to how many filters you can add. You can also, just for the sake of showcasing it, you can add third layers. You can do combinations, you can have nested and or logic. Some of our customers have 60 filters or more. At that point, I would consider maybe cleaning up your data model. However, it is possible. And you can do all of that. And essentially, we support all the filters that you have in Marketing Cloud. We support all the data formats and then some, because we're allowed to do certain operations in that. So I'm going to remove that. I'm going to keep it nice and easy. Maybe give it a little save there. And now that our data extensions are chosen and our filters are applied, we can go to step 2, target definition. So let's go there. So for target definition, I could choose an existing data extension, which is if you write a SQL query, is a step you have to do. But I'd love to do a show of hands, but I can't see also. But I'm just going to assume there's not going to be huge fans here of creating data extensions manually. At least it was not one of my favorite things. So fortunately, being the time efficient people that we are, we create a feature for that called create new data extension. So save. So what I'm doing now is I've set the scene for a new data extension, and you can read here in the center, drop fields to automatically create new target data extension. So that's what we can do. And those fields will be coming from the 3 data extensions we used before. And I'm just going to be lazy and say, just add all fields for each of these data extensions. Boom. And there we go. On the right-hand side, all those fields are immediately added with the right field format and so on. And I can just clean this up a little bit, because as we can see, the account's primary key and contact's primary key got copied. So I'm going to change it a little bit. I'm going to call this one account ID. I'm going to not make it a primary key because I only need that for contacts. We'll rename this contact ID. And I think we have one more. There we go. Opportunity ID. Something like this. And there's a few duplicates. We can throw them out. So just clean this up a little bit. And then send relationship. We'll just take the, where is it? Contact ID. Ah, there we go. Sorry. So to define the send relationship on the subscriber key, save data extension, create. Done. So now we have a data extension. Fantastic. And then we can go to the next step, which is the preview. So this step is kind of optional. At this point, we could already create, but we should already create a segment. But I just like to show this little penguin floating. Once that's done, we'll see a preview. So here you can see the preview, what that data will look like. It's just 20 records out of what apparently will be a total of 65 records. So these are people matching our criteria, and what the data set will kind of look like. Looks kind of okay. No funky things. Also, and I kind of like this feature too, you can also see the work you did not have to do. So this is the SQL query that came out of this. This thing is actually saved in Automation Studio. So our customers' data never leaves Marketing Cloud. We just create a SQL query in Marketing Cloud and we execute there and create a new data extension and so on. But we don't save data anywhere else. Okay, and meanwhile, I can see y'all's faces. That's fantastic. So now I can actually do show of hands if you feel like it. Anyway, SQL query, lovely. And then if I'm done with that thing, I can run it. That will take me back to the home screen. I took the liberty of already running a segment as I prepared for today's demo. And so that will be in our data extensions folder. Here we go, data extensions. And there we go, Kansas City user group, 65 records. All the records are there. Columns are filled in, completely formatted, just the way we want. No nasty SQL errors, no unexpected bugs, no crisis meetings a minute before go live. Before I move on to the next thing, I want to very, very quickly highlight a few things that I did not show. So what I did not show was that, for instance, at the level of filters, you can do filters across multiple data extensions. So if you want to do things like give me accounts that have at least 2 opportunities, that's already getting a little trickier to do in terms of segmentation with SQL or anything else, any other tool as well. That's built in, right? That's built in. So those kind of things you can do. At the level of the target data extension, you can also add personalized values, or as we like to call them, custom values. So if you add a new value, you can do things like just give me a fixed value for a new column that I want to make up, like test A or something, or a dynamic value. So you can do something like based on someone's sex, change the salutation. Based on someone's language preference, you can change things. Maybe if you're marketing to Canada, applying formulas. So here you can basically write any kind of crazy reject stuff that you want to do, you can do there. And then my personal favorite, aggregations like customer lifetime value, recent interactions, maybe even things like recency, frequency, monetary, right? RFM, typical model in retail. So that you can do that with DEselect. It's a little bit more setup, it's a little more, usually it's a little bit of a project there, but super powerful, because normally what marketers have to do is they have to reach out to their Salesforce CRM admin. They have to, for new aggregations, they have to create new fields. And then it takes a whole lot of time before that's implemented. It needs to be integrated and so on and so on. And here you give marketers essentially a playground where they can do the stuff themselves, which is kind of neat. Other stuff, prior duplication. So we can do very advanced duplication based on one or multiple rules, based on a certain order. So not just deduplicate, not just give me the most recent one, but rules like I'm trying to reach a company. If I cannot reach the accountant, give me the owner of the business. If I cannot reach the owner, give me the assistant. Like these kind of cascading rules. That's pretty neat. And then the last thing that I'll say about segment is that we can also do waterfall segmentations. So if you want to do multiple selections in a queue, because your business logic requires that, something we can do as well. Questions? Okay. All right, fantastic. Cool, then we'll just power on. So this was segment, the very, very fast version of segment. So what's next? Next, engage. Engage is, throughout our conversations with customers, we notice that one recurring need that customers have is being able to better control who gets what communication across the many journeys, across BUs, even across Marketing Cloud instances, in some cases, and be able to cap that in an intelligent way. So this problem is referred to with several names. Some people call it saturation control, frequency capping, marketing pressure management, collision control. It's all pointing at the same thing. Optimize the level of engagement with your customers. So given our mission statement, we felt very compelled to do something about that. And that's why we're introducing Engage, which allows to do these things. And Engage essentially has two major capabilities. So customizable saturation solution based on rules. So it's a rule-driven thing, and only rule-driven for now. Prioritization as well. So we also learned that even if you have rules that want to limit communication, sometimes you might want to send 2 promotions on the same day. Which one is more important in case they have an overlapping audience, right? Which one do you prioritize? So that's what we set out to build, because it's really about finding the right amount of communication here. It's not just about making sure you're not over engaging with your customers, aka spamming them. It's also making sure that they're not under engaged, right? So it's that little Goldilocks zone where your customers are getting the right amount of communication, and you're also not underusing your database. So that's what saturation control really is about. Business benefits. I think it's really important. I'm going to skip over this, I think, just for time's sake. This is a very interesting report. A very interesting research we did. So this is original data, actual research we did with consumers. There's a QR code in case you want to download it. There's a few takeaways on this slide, but I think there's some interesting insights to share with your team or bring to your boss in just how many people complain and how big this problem is. So having said that, let's just jump into the problem itself. So what is this problem about? So let's say that as a marketing team, you figure out, well, hold on, our unsubscribes too high, or too many of our customers are simply not engaging, or we just want to make sure we do really good marketing and good communication. So for those reasons, in our specific case, in this thought exercise, we say we want to limit the number of emails to customers to 3 emails every 15 days. Okay. So if we're going to visualize that, it might look something like this. There's time span. These little yellow balls, they indicate when communications are going to happen. And this little stripe is where we are today. So in this 15-day time span, we can see we already had 2 communications happen. There's a 3rd one coming up, so that one will be fine. But there's also a 4th one. So what do we do with that? Because 2 slots have been consumed, we have 2 possible communications that we can or cannot choose from. Now, the most common, the easiest approach will be to set a priority to the send date, or in other words, first come, first serve. But is that always the right solution for your campaign? What happens when there's more to consider? Well, for instance, you have multiple communications on the same day. So in this case, the problem gets a little bit aggravated. In that case, you may need to prioritize, right? Maybe these 2, maybe the communications that you're planning have a similar topic, like they're both promotional, they have a similar audience. They do happen roughly on the same time. So it's not a matter of you pulling them forward or pushing them backward. You even want to prioritize within that day. Secondly, what if your most important communication is into the future? So for instance, say we have these communications coming up, and the 4th one is actually a communication that the CEO is pressuring to send to all customers. Never happened in my company, but I hear it's hearsay, right? So, or your VP marketing or your CMO, whatever. So in that case, you need something to overrule the rules that you already set. But it gets a little bit more tricky when you have individuals in different types of campaigns. So for instance, there's a certain group of people in a seasonal promo. Some of those people are in the customer newsletter, and then yet some others are partially overlapping with these 2, but also are an event invite. So what about that? And so here's where the problem really becomes clear, the need for visibility, because the time where you have one simple newsletter list that you can put in the planning is past us. The chances that any of you has super clear-cut segments where there's never overlap is very small. You need to have that visibility across all those many campaigns, and it's virtually impossible to do this with like usual planning tools. So, and here's the kicker. Like the scenario I gave is still super simple, right? It's just one rule, 3 emails per 15 days. But in reality, the customers we talk with have much more advanced rules, and your marketing teams may as well. So for instance, one rule could be, well, we can do 3 marketing emails per 15 days, but never more than 1 email per day, unless they are of different campaign types. Anthony, what's a campaign type? Well, something like a survey versus promotional versus newsletter versus company update, something like that. Or let's explore another rule. What if you want to have 3 marketing emails per week for leads, but only 2 per week for active customers? So here's the notion of contact categories. You have different contacts in your database, B2B versus B2C, certain users versus others, mid-market segment versus SMB, whatever. And you want to treat these differently as well. So obviously, it can get very, very complex at this point. So how do people solve for it or try to? Number 1, engagement scoring. Now, engagement scoring serves another purpose, but you could also use it to prioritize your campaigns. Ergo, the people with the most engagement, you send the most campaigns. We have an ebook about this, so I won't say much more about this. There's a QR code if you want to download this guide. Helps you set up your scoring model. I think it's pretty fun stuff. So that's option 1. Option 2, Einstein, right? So there's an out-of-the-box feature in Marketing Cloud that helps you with frequency capping. Now, I know we have more experienced folks in the room, but it's always worth repeating that there is no such product as Einstein. It can be a very confusing thing for newer people in this ecosystem, because Einstein is actually a brand name. It's a brand for anything AI by Salesforce. But Salesforce has many Einstein products. Either they built themselves, they acquired it, and even in Marketing Cloud, you can find several. So you always have to ask, which Einstein are we talking about? So I'm talking about Einstein frequency capping. Is the little Einstein dude you can pull into your journeys, and it looks a little bit like this. And what it is it's a probabilistic model that predicts the state of a customer, so you can easily create dedicated paths in a journey. So saturated people will be excluded, undersaturated people can still be included. Okay, clear. What are the limitations, though? Well, it is a probabilistic model that's based on certain data views in Marketing Cloud. And so because of that, it gets very hard to use. Because number 1, if you don't use the SMC subscription center, all your contracts will be undersaturated or on target, ergo the information is useless. Number 2, it's only for certain channels. Number 3, you need a certain amount of data to be able to use it. Okay, that can be overcome. And number 4, and I think this is the one where marketers get the most squeamish and uncertain, it's a black box. You don't know like how it comes to that conclusion, right? There's no audit, there's no, and that's the thing. I think ultimately customers want to have control over what's happening, even in a ChatGPT world. So I'll skip this. There's one last thing I'll just mention very quickly: marketing intuition. So the thing that the way I know customers normally solve for this is like a calendar, and I know established customers who are pretty well versed in Marketing Cloud who still even have paper calendars. They get together with their whole team of 12, have the big papers, and they update post-its and whatnot. Yes, it happens. If not paper, maybe a spreadsheet or whatever. So that's a lot of manual tracking. That's just a pain to be dealing with. So how do we approach this instead? You can create general rules based on all these things that allow you to plan and prioritize campaigns, and then you can have an engaged decision split. Looking at the time, I will jump straight to that demo. So we stopped with a segment. This time I'm going to open my engage screen. So once again, fully in Marketing Cloud, fully integrated, turnkey. I think by now you know our style. And this is a calendar that we introduce. Has nothing to do with the Marketing Cloud calendar, which I don't know a lot of people using. But this one actually shows all the scents that we have planned and these beautiful colors here. So what are they? I'll just let you read that by yourself. But essentially here we're planning all the scents that we have, so we can see which campaigns are going to be undersaturated. Little side note here, so even this calendar is optional for usage. We have customers that have fully automated campaigns and journeys. As you can see, we can cover that too. But if you have outbound campaigns and you need to align on that with your team, and you need to know, hey, is my campaign actually going to reach people, or am I at risk of oversaturating it? You can use this. So as you can see, for instance, we have this red one here, promo for leads July. And if I click on that, I can see the configuration of this scent. I can see it's linked to a data extension for leads. That makes sense. When it's planned, the channel, the campaign type, priority, so on. But it's red. Why is it red? Well, let's click on this preview thing. okay, so there's 81 contacts in this thing, and all 81 of them are going to be excluded. Hey, what's up with that? Well, it's because they're oversaturated, and because based on rules, Engage is going to block you from sending those, as you should, right? Because we're trying to not overspam our people. How did that red come there? Like, what do we do? That brings us to the rules section. So in this, if I click on the little cogwheel here, bottom right, that's going to take me to an admin panel. Aside from users and all that stuff, we can do a little bit of configuration. Now, you want to have some sessions with your team or with your client before you start playing with these rules, because setting up the rules is easy. It's coming up with the rules. That's the hard part. That's when you need to do the thinking. Once you're there, it's easy though, because for instance, you can define campaign types, because maybe different rules will apply between a newsletter and a survey. So these are, again, optional step, but you can introduce the notion of campaign types. Cool. But Anthony, we have different customers. We have B2B and B2C. What about that? Well, for that, we can do contact categories. And contact categories, we can even derive that from your existing data. If it's mentioned there, in my case, we have 3 contact categories: customer, lead, prospect. Anthony, I don't have contact categories. That's fine. You don't need it. It's an optional feature. Just gives you a little bit more granularity. Next, channels. What channels do we want to allow? Okay, all of these. And then finally, we can get to the rules building. And here I have a few rules already set up, some rules for surveys, for leads in general. So let's just open one of those. Let's take 1 communication per day. So this is what the rule configuration looks like. We give that rule a name. We apply the rule, in this case, to all contacts. If we want to apply it to just the contact categories, some of which we have defined, we can do that as well. And we can say, however many we want, which campaign types we want, newsletter, survey, and so on, which channel, and for how many days. So I'm going to discard this change. So now all these rules are configured already. So this is going to make sure that our planning, let's go back, I can now know which campaign is going to be oversaturated or which not. And we can just on the spot, different icon. We can just drag and drop that. And the moment I drag and drop this red campaign, which was going to be oversaturated, I get this prompt saying recalculation required, and I can just hit recalculate. And then it's going to take it's going to take a little bit of time to measure all these contacts in this campaign and the surrounding campaigns against all those rules we set. And once that's done, it will recalculate. Now, in this case, I see it's actually still red. That's my fault. It's because we have another promo in that week. So normally, oh no, sorry, the recalculation is complete. I shut up. So it's good. We're fine. The campaign is green. Hooray. We can send that. Okay, so now this gives us an idea of the planned campaigns. Am I actually going to send a campaign that's not going to be saturated or not? But how do we make sure we apply this? Well, that's in Journey Builder. And so in Journey Builder, and I'll just show an existing one because for time's sake, we have introduced a new component very similar to the Einstein frequency capping. And it's called DEselect Engage. And you can just pull in, drag and drop our little penguin fella called DD, for those who wonder. You can just drag and drop this penguin. And then based on that, you can define different pathways to say, well, for people who are oversaturated, don't send them a communication, or wait, try again later, whatever. For people who are undersaturated, you can obviously still send your campaign. And this, in this case, it's applied within Journey Builder. There's more I want to show, but I want to make sure I can address questions, if any. It's okay. Yeah, we would refer to this as throttling. If I understand your use case, well, it's like, oh, this contact, like a contact enters the journey, and then DEselect Engage says, nope, this one's oversaturated. We should not send something. We could hold that contact, and that's what we call throttling. And then we could tell marketing client just try again later and see if the person now matches the criteria or not. And if it still doesn't work, again, we can repeat this a number of times. Awesome. Great question. Any other? Nice. There's a little bit more I could say about Engage, but I will. There's one last cool thing I want to share. If that's still okay, I want to be respectful of y'all's time. Because I know we're coming up at time here. Gotcha. Well, so I will just add one thing, and our announcement about generative AI. You're the second group to hear this. The first group was at Connections, where I gave a presentation on stage. Quick history here: like since the start of DEselect, my co-founder and I, he's a CTO now, we've always been contemplating AI and to do something with that. Even back then, startups and tech companies that did stuff with AI got all kinds of attention. But we were always compelled to not do that and not to get sucked up in the hype because we feel ultimately the AI and data science reality, especially back then, was really far from the marketing operations people day-to-day life, where you just want to get the freaking campaign out of the door and not get lost in the data science forest. But it was always on our mind. And actually, in the past year, we already started hiring a bunch of data scientists specialized in Python, because for our Engage product, the one that you just saw, we see all kinds of ideas in terms of affinities, in terms of optimizing things automatically on top of the rules that people can set. So when ChatGPT came out, at least ChatGPT 4, and all the stuff OpenAI has been doing, we got really enthusiastic. And so now we're powering, for starters, DEselect segment with this. And if you want to stay up to date for the latest updates, once again, QR code. There's a form you can register to be the first one to hear about this if you want to be part of the beta, which will start very, 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 very soon. But here's a quick preview of what that looked like. So you saw me build a segment. Now imagine you can just type what you want in normal language, or even better, speak it, because we can also do transcription. We can immediately translate that to a segment in DEselect like I just saw you. So yes, you could use ChatGPT to write SQL as well, but ChatGPT doesn't know your data model, doesn't know the peculiarities of Marketing Cloud's SQL, and you still have to configure all the rest and do all the manual stuff. And your non-technical marketers don't know if the SQL is correct or not. But with this, we can allow you to have a co-pilot right in Marketing Cloud that writes this. Salesforce is doing a lot of stuff as well with generative AI. I'm super excited about it. The big difference, what they're positioning for their marketing AI, is actually that their marketing AI will be in Data Cloud, which is great, which is fantastic. But not a lot of people have Data Cloud at this point, right? For price point, because of length of implementation, whatever. So we're making this available straight in Marketing Cloud. That will be, I think, the key difference for those who wonder. And as I said, will be available very, very, very soon. So that's it. That was my last announcement. Thanks again, everyone. Great questions. Thank you for your time. If you want to stay in touch, feel free to connect on LinkedIn. I love connecting with MarTech people and geek out about this stuff. Shoot me an email if you have any questions. And thank you for the opportunity and your time today. Oh, absolutely. Take care. Thank you.